everyone. Welcome back to Novel Idea. My name is Dia, and today we are doing our weekly wrap-up. So I have 5 books that I completed this last week, and then I have a few more that I'm in the middle of still, and I have some that are on deck to read next. So without further ado, let's jump in. The first book I completed was a buddy read with Amy C., who is a commenter and subscriber on the channel. And this was Tide and Punishment by Bree Baker. It's our 3rd book in this series, which is the Seaside Cafe series. And we're really enjoying it. We really like this writing style. We really like these characters. We like the town that it's set in. It's just, you hear my husband singing in the background. Then I did a buddy read with Kelly from Kelly Reads a Lot and Kellyanne from Kellyanne Mitchell. And we read CP Cabaniss, which is Courtney from Courtney Reads. We read her book of short stories called Ferris Wheel Stories. And I want to call these short stories because I think that is what it actually says on the back of the book, but they're interconnected. You would not know what was going on in one if you hadn't read the ones before. So it's very important that you read all of them. We were wishing that that maybe she had turned it into a novel. I think that I read from Courtney that she had tried to do that, but it wasn't working for her. And so, but I do think that if it could be developed into a novel, it would flow easier and better. Courtney has beautiful way with words. At the beginning of each chapter, she kind of just does this little poetic blurb, and it is lovely. Almost every time it was like the very first thing that we talked about in our discussion about the book. And Courtney is very good at poetry. I've read some of her poems, and I think that even turning this into like a long form poem would be a good way to get across these ideas. The one thing that I think would improve it, that she has it just the way that it is, but was to put the middle section from the other person's perspective. And there's kind of like a secondary side character that could be a protagonist. And I think that if it was from his perspective, would be just that much more enriching to the book. And then the last thing that I will say is that because this is a first publication, I think that the dialogue in the book just suffers a little bit from just not having a really good flow. I had a hard time liking Ruby in this book. You kind of come to like her by the end of the book a little bit better, but it was difficult for me to like Ruby. And I don't know that she's supposed to be likable at the beginning of the book, but anyway, we all had such a lovely time talking about this together and reading these stories and talking about the beautiful way she puts a sentence together. So that was Ferris Wheel Stories. And oh, I didn't tell you, I mean, I am still doing my book bingo. And so Tide and Punishment was for seaside and beach or island setting. And then Ferris Wheel Stories is for author with a summer birthday because Courtney's birthday was this month. So I think that Ferris Wheel Stories is well worth the read, and you should definitely pick it up if you have any inclination towards it. It is about a girl who has died, and in the afterlife has some things that she needs to accomplish. And it is about this journey that she goes on to kind of conquer some things and to help others conquer some things. And it was all done through this Ferris wheel that kind of acts almost as a time portal. It's just kind of a fascinating idea overall. The next book that I finished was The Go-Between by LP Hartley. And I got this through a recommendation from Nicole from A Day of Small Beginnings. And this I am using for my coming of age square on my bingo board. It's basically him as an older man looking back on this period of life and how he grew up during this time because of some circumstances. And I enjoyed it overall. I don't think that it is a new favorite or anything, but I do really think that the writing was just beautiful. And it really gives you the feeling of what it's like to be growing up in that day and age, and just the importance of what friendship really means to those, especially those who are hungry for relationship in so many ways, because they've either lost a parent or they, this is their first time away from home, or just all those kinds of things. So it is a well done novel. It's not going to be a favorite just simply because of the circumstances that happen in the book. It's not going to be one that I have this desire to go back and reread over and over again or anything like that. And so I would say B minus. The next one that I completed was Abigail. This is by Magda Szabo, and I got this as a recommendation from Alana Estelle, who is the one who recommended Cold Mountain to me, and that was one of my favorite reads of last year. I honestly think that Abigail may be one of my favorite reads from this year. So she's 2 for 2 with me. So Abigail is about a young girl in Hungary who is kind of at that age where she's becoming an adult and wants to be considered an adult, but she's not an adult. And she's from a wealthier family, loses her mom, grows up with a governess who is very motherly and very loving, and her aunt is someone that she spends a lot of time with as well. But her aunt is very kind of self-centered and superficial, very shallow. So her father is a general in the Hungarian army, and he knows that they are losing the war. So he sends her away to this very strict, very religious boarding school where he knows that she will be watched over with a rule of iron, basically. And so it is the story of her as she grows up really come into a place of wanting to be someone that other people respect and honor. And she just, there's a way that Szabo has of writing that completely encompasses what she is feeling and what is going on around her and the feelings of those that are her peers and her elders, and realizing that we don't always have the full story as to why people do what they do. It was just beautiful. It was so excellently done. And so once again, Alana knocked it out of the park for me. The next one that I finished, and the final one for the week that I finished, was The House Without Windows. And this is by Barbara Follett, who was a child prodigy author. And so she wrote this book, I believe they said when she was 9 years old. And I think it was published when she was 10. It's about a little girl who has a very loving family. And they do a lot of things for her and for each other. And yet she's discontented. And she decides she doesn't really run away on purpose necessarily, but she runs to the woods to kind of see if she can find this thing that she's missing in her life because she's discontented at home. I think that taken as a work of a 9-year-old, it's incredible. But taken as a work of literature, it's a child's story. It's a story that sounds very much like a child's imagination. It has some very specific things that you just have to suspend your disbelief for, the way that a child does. The way that a child just says, yeah, this could totally happen. But it's still amazing that a 9-year-old wrote it. So that one I am using for my friend recommendation because that one was recommended by Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading. Lots of animals, lots of nature, lots of just joyous moments of being a kid. So that is it for the books that I have finished reading. I am still in the middle of Labyrinths by Borges. We have completed the fictions, the stories part of the book, and we are into the essays. And I think I have about 6 more essays, and then I will have the parables section to read. Labyrinths is going to be for my 1-word title square. And then I'm still reading Knowledge of the Holy. This is the last week of that. And we just had our live show discussion earlier today, and it was so sweet. Krista was our host this week because Tiffany is recovering still from her surgery, and so we were pitch hitters today. And I was so thankful that Krista wanted to host that because I have never hosted a live and I don't know how I would have done. And it was just a wonderful discussion, and that's my nonfiction square. And then I started yesterday with Dave and Olive from Book Blather, Beasts of Tarzan, and we're reading about 3 chapters a day, and it'll take us about a week to get through it. And it's just really been fun. It was making me laugh out loud, funny this morning. It was just so good. It's more pulpy than the first book. The first book felt very classic literature, but this one feels a little more pulp fiction. All right, then coming up, I have Atalanta, which I mentioned last week, by Jennifer Saint. That's for my mythology square, and I just have not had an opportunity to actually pick it up and read it. And then I have Spider's War by Daniel Abraham, which is book 5 in the Dagger and Coin series. And that is going to be for my 500 plus pages book. It is the last in the Dagger and Coin. So I will be finishing that series when I finish this book. And I'm really hoping that it ends on a high. Then the other two books that I have to pick up are House of Rest, which is by Khadija Abdalla Bajaber. I'm sorry that I butchered that. And that is for a book that is outside my comfort zone. It is billed as literary fiction. It's about a girl whose father has gone missing, and she goes to sea. He's a fisherman, and she goes to sea on a boat made of bones in order to find him and bring him home. And like I said, it's billed as literary fiction. I'm not a literary fiction reader, and that's why it's outside my comfort zone. And then I am also going to read The Shuttle by Frances Hodgson Burnett. And this is for a book that I have owned for more than 5 years. I have a very old copy. I'll put a picture up. I picked it up years and years and years ago at a antique store, and I have never actually read it. So I am going to do that. I don't know why, because I love Frances Hodgson Burnett's books, and so I don't know why it's taken me so long, but that one is next. And I think that is everything. So I hope that you all are doing well, and I hope that some of you are joining us next week for the final discussion on knowledge of the holy. And I am loving my buddy reads right now. I would love to hear if you are enjoying your reading. And yeah, I will see you in the next video very soon. Like if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to. Thanks everyone. Bye.